Bob Russo. I'm the Community Policing Officer for the Rutland City Police Department. We're going to touch on various aspects of the local gang activity and that's been recently propped up in our community. I'll start with introductions. To my left is Chief Holmes of the Rutland City Police Department, Mayor Jeff Wenberg, Detective David Shellwacker, Rutland City Police Department, Corporal Ed Larson, Rutland City Police Department, and Ira Earl, the Emergency Management Director. I'd like to thank Ira and all the American Legion folks for helping us put this together, use their facility this morning too. The Chief's going to start out with quick where we've been so far with this. Detective Shellwacker will give a recap of the history, the date, the gang history, and the symbols and signs of the gang. The Mayor will speak on Rutland's response and the curfew to the new recent gang activity. Corporal Larson will discuss what the DARE program is doing in the schools as far as gang activity goes. And the Chief will do a quick speech on prevention, and then we'll have a question and answer period following that. We're going to review some tapes that we just recently got that we didn't show at the other ones that are we found to be very helpful and very informative. One with Dan Rather on CBS News where he interviews one of these gang members. And with that, I'd like to have Chief Holmes step up and start, please.
Thank you, Bob. It's nice to be here this morning. It's good to see we have a good crowd. Thank you all for coming. We're going to change, as Bob mentioned, we're going to change our format from our other public forums just a little bit because we have about 20 minutes worth of videotape that we've only recently received. And the other group didn't get to see those, and I think they're very worthwhile. So we're going to change our format just slightly. 25 or I guess 30 days ago, nobody in Rutland that I know of had ever heard of the Los Alitos. Frankly, neither have I, and I've been in law enforcement a long time. We were quite fortunate really to find out they were here. It wasn't necessarily through good police work. I like to call it a blessing from the Lord. Other people call it luck. But because there was a situation where there was a fight over on Maple Street that you all read about, it really brought our attention to the fact that we did have a street gang from a major city organizing here in Rutland. Had that not happened that night, we may not have actually been able to discover that until now. And that's kind of significant because in the history of street gangs, oftentimes they're well organized before the public finds out they're there. And then sometimes it's too late. So it's been kind of a blessing to us to find out that they were there so we could make an appropriate response. I wanted to talk about our response as I have in the past forums, but because there's been so much in the paper, I think you've learned a lot about it. The first thing, of course, was to try to organize some public forums to inform the public of exactly what's going on, even though we ourselves don't know everything that's going on. But before we talk about the specifics of the gang, I want to use a definition that I think is pretty good in terms of what a street gang is and what we're talking about. You've heard people talk about gangs or just groups. Well, there's one definition that's used in the DARE program that Corporal Larson will talk about later. It says any group whose members regularly participate in activities that break the law. In terms of street gangs, we take that just a little bit further. I mean, that's an excellent definition for youth to understand. But an accepted criteria for the identification of street gangs is a collection of individuals organized under some form of recognizable leadership, a leadership structure at least, using a common name, a common identification, engaging in crime and delinquent activity against society, and for continued period of time. In other words, not just a gang that may commit one crime and be over, that continues with crime and delinquent activity. And that's what we think we have. The gang here that we're speaking of, you've all read the name, Los Salitos. You'll get a little bit about the gang history a little bit later. It is a violent gang. I can tell you about that, but and go into a lot of detail, but I think it's done better by Dan Rather. This was a program, 1994 program he did on I America, and he's got about 8 minutes of the Salitos in Hartford, Connecticut. And I think, you know, that's not very far from here, and I think it gives you an idea of how the gang is organized and what it amounts to in terms of violence. I'd like to show that. And then there's another film clip that we have that talks about a gang that formed in Davenport, Iowa, which I think that more of you could identify with, because Davenport, Iowa is right in the middle of the Corn Belt. And it's not a major city, and I think you can see the dangers of the formation of those gangs in communities that are not unlike ours. So I'd like to start here first with the Dan Rather tape. Is that in the... We need to dim these lights. As an update, George Rivera, the gang leader that has been interviewed there, was arrested by the Hartford Gang Task Force the week this was released, and was convicted in federal court of racketeering and is now serving time in the federal penitentiary. There have been some other 44 convictions of racketeering within the gangs there in Hartford. But the sad thing is, he's already been replaced with somebody equally as strong and powerful as he is there. Now, one of the things we have to be careful about when we talk about the Salitos and gangs in general in large cities, we're not trying to scare our public to death by showing them these kinds of things. What we want to do is raise your concern to the point of cooperation and educate you as to how these things happen, so that you can help us prevent this kind of an organization from getting started in our community. Obviously, here in Rutland, we don't have an organization to this extent. However, the Los Salitos gang, just depicted in this particular film strip, is the same gang that is presently in the city. Not in those numbers, but the numbers of the gang members that we've seen come, and they've been here since about probably late April, May, June, along in there, from what we can tell, have continued to increase, where there's probably as many as at least 20 of them here in our community now. Now, some of them have come and gone, but each day in the last few weeks, we've seen additional members come in. Now, those are the ones that we've been able to identify as Salitos gang members. There could be many more that we simply just haven't seen. And while they're here, they have been recruiting our children. And we are talking about children. The average gang age runs from about 13 to 24. The leaders are usually the 20 to 24 age, and the younger ones, the juveniles, are the ones that do a lot of the work for them, because frankly the gang realizes that the juveniles will get they'll be tried in juvenile courts and that sort of thing, and they'll get lesser sentences, and they really won't see any jail time, and that's why they use them. Now, there's no reason for anyone in Rutland to change their style of life. You can walk the streets and still say that we haven't come to this point. What we're trying to do is prevent the gangs from getting that organized. And you're thinking, well, that's a big city, Hartford. You know, there's 500,000 people in Hartford. It's a good-sized area. How could that happen here? Well, The next film I want to show you is a film, a clip that was done on a gang, not the Slitos gang, but a similar type of a gang. It occurred in Davenport, Iowa. Davenport, Iowa, in the middle of the Corn Belt, in mid-America, right in the heartland, in farm country. Now, how could all of it? And it doesn't have a particularly high ethnic population. It's mid-America, heartland, as I said. How could it happen in a place like that? I think you can see some identification with our community when you see this one. I'd like to run this one next, brother. Point out the potential danger with these kinds of groups. And that's what this is all about. We're trying to prevent those kinds of things from happening in Rutland. Now, I'm not going to talk much longer. I'm going to turn it over to Dave Schauacker, who will talk to you a little bit about what we've done, what has happened here in Rutland, and a little bit of explanation about the gang. Dave.
Okay. Saturday, July 29th at 11:30 p.m., an incident at the Getaway Teen Club where 3 youths were arrested for possession of malt beverage. This incident was precipitated by a fight where racial slurs were used. On Sunday, July 30th at 12:30 a.m., police responded to the Getaway Teen Club for a fight involving 25 to 30 people. No arrests were made. At the same time, another fight at the intersection of Pine and Maple Streets. There was no arrest made there. Then on Sunday, July 30th at 9 p.m., police responded to 111 Maple Street for a large fight. Officers arrived and observed over 100 people gathered in front of 111 Maple Street, several of whom were fighting. Several off-duty police officers and outside agencies were called in for backup. 2 youths were hurt during a fracas. The youths were transported to the medical center where they were treated and released. At the scene, police recovered numerous weapons to include bats, machetes, knives, clubs, brass knuckles, pipes, just to name a few. Investigation into this incident started at that time. On Monday, July 31st, the Western Massachusetts Gang Task Force came to Rutland to identify persons involved in the 111 Maple Street incident. The Gang Task Force also gave police an overview of the Slitos gang. On Tuesday, August 1st, the tenants living at 111 Maple Street were evicted due to several health code violations. Police continue to investigate the involvement of the gang activity. Patrols are increased. During this time, the police and the Gang Task Force are able to identify members of the Slitos gang from Massachusetts who are now in Rutland. On Wednesday, August 2nd, at approximately 3 a.m., a Molotov cocktail was thrown against 111 Maple Street. The fire was contained and there was minimal damage. On Wednesday, August 2nd, at 11:18 p.m., 2 youths were arrested for a simulated drive-by shooting in front of the Getaway Teen Club involving cap guns. Detective Lamoria witnessed this incident and subsequently made the arrest. On Friday, August 4th, 3 Rutland County juveniles were arrested for possession of malt beverages in the parking lot next to the Getaway Teen Club. On August 5th and Sunday, August 6th, police are continuing their heightened state of alert. On August 7th, police continue to gather statements on the 111 Maple Street fight incident. Wednesday, August 9th, police are called to the Getaway Teen Club in regards to a male subject, a former Latin King member, being threatened by members of the Slitos gang. The owner of the teen club observed several new faces congregating with members of the Slitos gang from Massachusetts. Police were able to ID them as being additional members from the Slitos gang from Massachusetts. On Friday, August 11th, Chief Holmes issues an order to chins youth 17 and under who meet the requirements under Title 13 Vermont Statutes annotated 5510. Chins means a child in need of care or supervision. About an hour after the chief issues that order, 2 juveniles, members of the Slitos, reportedly threatened a local youth stating, "Tonight you're dead," and one made gestures insinuating he had a gun. Both Slitos youths were taken into police custody as chins. Both youths are now back in police custody. On Sunday, August 13th, police respond to Meadow Street in the area of Monsignor Connor Park for a large number of youth standing in the roadway. Upon arrival of the police, it was observed that approximately 20 to 25 youths were indeed standing in the roadway blocking the normal flow of traffic. Investigation at the scene led to the arrest of 20-year-old Edwin Rodriguez for possession of marijuana, possession of malt beverage, disorderly conduct, and impeding a police officer. Rodriguez was lodged in jail for lack of $2,500 on the above charges. On August 16th, Brandon arrested 3 Solitos members for felony unlawful trespass. In other words, they went into somebody's house without being allowed to do so. 2 more arrests were made in Brandon in the connection of a sexual assault. On August 21st, Dion Webster was arraigned for hate-motivated simple assault charge. An arrest warrant was also issued for Shane Soderberg for the same charges. On August 28th, police met with the FBI Gang Task Force from Connecticut. And as of this date, the police are still continuing their investigation on the gang activity, and several more arrests are pending at this time. What I've got to read now is, and I'm sure I'm going to be repeating a lot what you've heard in the film. Today was the first time I heard that, and it's basically a lot in here, but this will get into some more details. This is a history of the Los Solitos Nation. Between 1990 and 1991, 2 Hartford, Connecticut street gangs known as Savage Nomads and the Ghetto Brothers merged to form one gang, now known as the Los Solitos. The Los Solitos, interpreted as the solid ones. Solitos consider themselves a family, or as they call themselves, La Familia. The merger between the Savage Nomads and the Ghetto Brothers came about after both gangs realized that on their own, they were outnumbered in membership by other rival gangs in the area. In order for these gangs to survive and to compete for profits derived from criminal activity, they needed to increase their membership. By merging both gangs, they were able to increase the numbers of members to over 3,000, and due to the ongoing process of recruiting new members throughout the country, membership increases on a daily basis. The Los Solitos membership is comprised of both male and female. The female members are known as Las Solitas, an A instead of an O. The ages of the members range from 12 to 25 years old. As with most gangs, the Los Solitos believe that juveniles are an important part of their membership, as juveniles do not face the same penalties as adults do if arrested or convicted for a crime. Members of the Los Solitos come from every race, religion, and economic background. Eventually, the goal of Los Solitos is to have chapters in every state in the country. Members of the Los Solitos are encouraged to venture out into new states and cities in an effort to find new sites to set up family business and recruit new members, as we're seeing today. Los Solitos are known to have operational chapters throughout Connecticut, Massachusetts, and it appears that they're now interested in expanding in Vermont, particularly in Rutland. The Los Solitos have chapters inside of correctional facilities in those states. The structure of the Los Solitos Nation is as follows. The nation, Los Solitos Nation, which is comprised of all Los Solitos chapters, as well as established organized structure. In other words, the Los Solitos Nation is the mother, and the chapters, wherever they are throughout the states, are the kids. And they all go to the nation. They get their orders from their nation. The top-ranking member of the Los Solitos Nation is known as the Godfather. The Godfather is the ultimate commander of the entire family and all its chapters. The hierarchy of the Los Solitos then consists of the president, vice president, and executive committee of 5 members through which all chapters are controlled. As new chapters are formed, each chapter is appointed a president by the Godfather. The chapter president then appoints a vice president and its own executive committee to control the local chapter. There are several positions within the structure of the local chapters which members occupy and have certain responsibilities. These positions include scouts. Scouts are responsible for venturing out into other cities and states to find new sites to begin new chapters and recruit new members. We're seeing that now. Once the scout has familiarized itself with the chosen community, the scout will report back to the Los Solitos Nation Executive Committee, and give a full report of all information necessary to make a decision whether or not the chapter will be formed there. The enforcers. The enforcers are the security of the Los Alamitos Nation and are the peacekeepers within the family and protector of every family member. They are responsible for enforcing rules and regulations of the Los Alamitos and carrying out any punishment handed down to the members from the executive committee. Enforcers are both local chapters and in the hierarchy of the Los Alamitos Nation. The collectors are responsible for picking up all proceeds from criminal activity conducted on a nightly basis, whether it's drugs, prostitution, selling of stolen property. The accountants, got to have an accountant. The accountants are the financial bookkeepers of the Los Alamitos proceeds. Within every chapter, members are assigned other jobs and duties. For example, if the gang has established a clubhouse, they will need members to run the clubhouse, cleaning crews, maintenance workers, etc. Also, during criminal activity, which the Los Alamitos call missions, members are assigned duties as lookouts, runners, wheelmen, and other duties they feel necessary to carry out the mission. Female members may be designated as prostitutes, or as Los Alamitos call it, escorts. The rules and regulations, they have a signed contract and strict written rules and regulations governing members. Consequences for violating these rules and regulations are severe and strictly enforced. New members are given copies of the rules and regulations and are told that the purpose of the rules are to keep them in the correct path and focused on the goals of the Los Alamitos Nation and give Los Alamitos Nation a good name and a strong, powerful empire. New members must sign a written contract with the Los Alamitos Nation. They are told that this contract is for safety reasons for them as well as for the family, giving the family their 100% effort to do their duties for the nation. Any violation of this contract could result in termination, beat down, even death, depending on the seriousness of the violation. The signed contract also means that the family is obligated to help in times of need, such as money, clothing, backup, lawyers, bondsmen, and so forth. The contract warns the members that they are not to talk about anything they hear or see having to do with the Los Alamitos Nation to anyone outside of the family. Doing so will result in death. And lastly, the goals of the Los Alamitos when setting up the new chapter. The Los Alamitos' primary goal when moving into the new city or state is to control all criminal activity motivated by profit, such as narcotic sales, primary crack cocaine, prostitution, and extortion. The large profits gained from these activities are the main source of income for the Los Alamitos Nation. These profits will allow the Alamitos to finance their missions, pay members for services rendered, purchase weapons, and other equipment needed to carry out the criminal activity. At this time, we do not believe the Los Alamitos have established an operational chapter in the city. However, due to the history of the violence associated with this gang and their involvement with criminal activity and their well-defined organization structure in other areas of the country, the presence of individuals identified as members of this gang in our city, we should not be underestimating the potential problem. The Los Alamitos Nation will do whatever it takes to keep the family together and to reach its goals. Thanks. Okay, these are some of the graffiti that you may see in and around the city. Hopefully we won't, but Los Alamitos is written like this. Some of the abbreviation is TSO, True Solid Ones, LSN, Los Alamitos Nation, SFE, Solid Forever, FES, Forever Solid, SF, FS, Solid Forever, Forever Solid. Another Los Alamitos is the Solid Ones. Okay, we'll keep this out so you can flip through it at the end, but they also, one of their symbols and signs are the theatrical signs, happy and sad face. You'll see it on tattoos, drawings, and also be sprayed painted on walls. You'll see it everywhere. A lot of them tattoo it on their bodies. Okay, like I said, with the structure, you get the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, warlord, the enforcer. Initiations to get into the gang. A lot of them will have to commit an armed robbery. home invasions, whether occupied or somebody's on vacation. Drive-by shootings is a favorite. And meetings, to get into these. They have weekly meetings. They have a kitty to help their persons who are in jail to get them bailed out. Their missions, they steal a vehicle with 3 to 4 members that usually carry out the mission, whatever it might be. And their weapon of preferred choice is the 9mm because of the capacity, or the sawed-off shotgun because it fans out and they can cut the barrels off. And that's it.
Good morning. I want to thank everybody for coming. As a result of the first 3 community meetings that we had recently, a number of people came forward and said, yeah, that was nice, but you held them all in the evening, and there are some of us who can't, because of our work schedules, attend such a thing in the evening and would love to have the opportunity to do so. And so as quickly as we were able to, given the other demands on other events that the police department and some of the rest of us have had to deal with, we were able to put this together. Because of all of that, the word did not get out to the same degree regarding this meeting as was the case with the previous 3. So I'm particularly impressed by the number of you who have come here this morning, and clearly showing that there certainly was an interest among folks who couldn't attend the evening meetings to come. I'd point out that probably with this group we've made this presentation or some earlier version of it to something in the vicinity of 600 people in the city of Rutland. That's in 4 meetings, 600 people. That's remarkable, but I would also point out that there are still 17,500 people in the city of Rutland who haven't seen any of this. And so we still have our work cut out for us. We're going to be using the facilities available with the cable access channel next week. Hopefully we'll get the word out on that, and people who haven't seen these or might have some further questions that we may have attended, we'll have a chance to see that. Also, this particular forum is being videotaped currently and will be broadcast hopefully more than once, so that people, again, who couldn't make any of the 4 might be able to find a time in their schedule to catch, maybe not the question and answers. They wouldn't be able to do that through the videotape, but they certainly could see the presentations and hear the answers to your questions. So I appreciate Channel 15's presence. There are a couple of members of the Board of Aldermen present. I want to recognize them. Bill Gillum is over here, and Sam Caruso is right up front here. Are there any other members of the board who come in that I didn't notice? I don't think so. I think nearly every member of the Board of Aldermen has attended at least one, and several of you have attended several of these meetings. And I want to express my personal appreciation for the support and activism of the board members, not only within the boardroom by the passage, the rapid passage of the curfew ordinance, but by your continued support and presence and so forth. It's very impressive and much appreciated. I know that you've received a certain amount of criticism for some of your actions, as have some of the rest of us, and I really do appreciate the fact that you're sticking with it. As more and more information comes to light, and more information is being presented here than has been presented at any other time, I think it becomes clearer and clearer as to what the challenges that faces us as a community. We don't pretend to have all the answers. We probably have very few. But we do have one advantage, and that advantage is that we were able to find out about this activity very, very early. That early warning sign, that early notification, will present us with our single greatest tool in making sure that what we just saw on the television is not our future. But ultimately, whether it becomes our future or not, is in our hands, everyone in this room, and of course all of our townspeople and people in the region, more than anyone else's. I want to talk just a little bit about the curfew ordinance. There's still a little bit of misunderstanding regarding what that ordinance is. I will very briefly just tell you that it is not an ordinance that places a curfew on any particular age group. The curfew itself is not in effect currently, nor would it be in effect for general purposes, for just the time of day kind of a thing. It is solely a curfew which would be imposed during a state of emergency, only if the community we're faced with a civil disturbance either underway or imminent, for which there is very strong evidence of the presence of violence, would the mayor then be authorized to impose a curfew, which could apply to the entire city, it could apply to a small section of the city, it could apply to a single property, it could apply to a block, it could apply 24 hours, it could apply after dark. It would be for limited duration, only until the state of emergency is passed. I continue to notice, especially among people from outside the community, some criticism of this. I want to state emphatically that the Board of Aldermen acted not only appropriately but courageously by passing this by unanimous vote. With any luck, good fortune, we will never exercise the authority under this ordinance. It will never actually be used. But in the event that there is a need, it is at least available to the city to use in the event that such an emergency were to arise. I would offer that we've had the same authority to respond to natural disasters for decades. If there were a flood or an earthquake or something like that, we've had the authority to declare a state of emergency and impose a curfew or cordon off an area of the city for as long as anybody can research back in the books. It seemed absurd to us that we would have the authority in the event of an earthquake to protect property and life in this fashion, but we would not have the authority in the event of a riot or some other civil disturbance. I think the Board of Aldermen acted appropriately because they clearly understood what it was and what it was not. There's still confusion out there, and I appreciate the opportunity to set this aside. Copies of the ordinance have either been passed out or are available. If you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. We've got a couple members of the board, too, we can rope them in, too, if they would like. Two other points that I would like to make before I sit down. First of all, if there is a sense because other events have started to take precedence over our concern publicly or in the media for this issue, which is a natural course of events, it's the way things go. If that leads you to believe that the problem has passed, that the gang activity has ceased, that we no longer are as concerned perhaps as we were a week or two ago, that's absolutely untrue. We are more concerned today than we have been in the past because the more we learn, the more we are convinced that we have our work cut out for us. Also, there is no evidence whatsoever that the Salidos are in any way abandoning their commitment to establish an operational chapter in our community. All the evidence points strongly, quite frankly, unquestionably, to the conclusion that they are increasing their efforts to do that in spite of our reaction, and we should take that to heart. One thing that the Chief is going to talk about our overall program at the conclusion here, before we go to questions. We've held a meeting with the local social service agency providers to look at the safety net that we have in the region and in the community, to make sure that the counseling, education, job training, all those kinds of services that are going to be necessary in order to intervene and to help families and young people who might be at risk for this kind of activity, that those things are there. We've got a great group of folks who are already, quite frankly, well ahead of the curve on answering many of these questions. And they will be responding, we'll be looking at finding wherever the gaps in that safety net might be and what we as a community, or perhaps the state with their assistance, might be able to do to help us fill those gaps. Likewise, I will be approaching next week on less than public basis some members of the local business community who have expressed an interest in doing something to help in this regard. We're going to be exploring possibilities, and we'll be establishing sometime thereafter, soon thereafter I hope, what I would call an opportunities group, which will be a private sector, public sector group to look for positive things, both to celebrate the wonderful things the vast majority of our young people are doing in this community today and will be doing in the future, but also to find ways to empower, wire in, and make the private sector a full partner in dealing with the issues that are facing our young people that might make them vulnerable or susceptible to this kind of activity. The important thing I think I want to leave you with in terms of these remarks is while what you just saw on the television screen is very scary, and if you're like me, you're scared to death over whether or not we're looking at our future. Believe me, I am very, very fearful that that may be the case. And there is no reason at this time to fear that we are there. We are not. We are far from there. We have had the good fortune, if we can call it that, finding out about this before it got to a stage where the roots of this activity had sunk deep into our community and had affected a great many of our young people. However, the recruitment activity is underway. Do not be fooled. The media has a responsibility, which we recognize and that we should all appreciate, to present every side of the story that's available for them to present. You've got the mayor and the police chief, members of the police department, and other members of the community standing in front of you in meetings and going on television saying that this is a threat not only to our children, but to the future of our whole community. And the people who are promoting this activity, who see profit in organizing a violent street gang in our community, will deny this. And they will deny it very convincingly, flat-faced, flat out, no problem. And they have already done so in the media. The media has a responsibility to print both sides, or to publish both sides. We understand that. Don't be fooled. You saw the videotapes. You've heard the recent, very early police activity, criminal activity that we've already encountered in this region. They would like nothing more than for the parents of this community to get sidetracked with whatever the challenge of the day might be and to step aside from their vigilance over the activities and well-being of their children. They would like nothing more than to have the police department and the community leadership, the Board of Aldermen, the mayor, the people who make spending decisions, those kinds of things, to say, well, this seems to have abated, let's go deal with other priorities. They would like nothing more than for the heat to come off and for them to basically, quietly, over the years, months, even years, to sink those roots deep into this community. Don't be fooled. There is nothing benign, benevolent, or in any way innocent about their purpose here or their activities here. They are here for one reason and one reason only: to control and promote criminal activity in our community and to take our children away from us. Now, they can't do it unless we let them. The only reason a young person has a fascination for or a desire to become involved in this activity is because there's some void, either through the community or through their family life or whatever, that is not being filled in a positive, constructive way. So we have a responsibility as parents, as peers, as neighbors, as members of this community, to see that we do everything in our power to fill that void constructively among those young people for which that is the case. Everyone that finds that satisfaction with the Salidos is one that we have failed. So that is our responsibility. It is a huge responsibility, as you've seen from what's happened elsewhere. But it's one that we as a community can rise to and meet. In the meantime, the police department, I can assure you, is not going to be backing off and is not going to be taking it lightly and is continue to working overtime to make sure that this situation does not proceed beyond the current state and is reversed. You are the key. The parents, the neighbors, the people who watch out for what our young folks are doing, and keep an eye on what's going on across the street, down the street, on the corner. You are the key. You see something that doesn't seem right, call the police department. Let them know. There are over 18,000 pairs of eyes and ears in this community. We have fewer than 40 sworn officers in the Rutland City Police Department. Our job is big, but it would be a lot easier if you provide us with whatever you can to help us do our job. Finally, I would just like to say that I am immensely proud of the members and the leadership of the Rutland City Police Department. We have, without a doubt in my mind, the finest local police force and agency in the state of Vermont. And if there is any group of people who are sworn to protect and serve, who are up to the task, with assistance from others, all of us specifically, up to the task of meeting this challenge, it is this group before you and their peers out on the street. So I offer my deep support and encouragement and appreciation for their efforts. I encourage you to do likewise. Thank you.
I'll try to keep my remarks rather brief. I'm Corporal Ed Larson. I'm the coordinator for the Rutland City Police Department's DARE program. DARE stands for Drug Abuse Resistance Education, which started here in the city about 7 years ago, thanks to the help of Sister Rita Marie, who's here today, also Dr. Brothers in the school system. We have specially trained and nationally certified officers that go into our schools to talk to kids, adolescents, about the threats of drug and alcohol, and now resisting gang and group violence. Jackie, could you do me a favor? The stack of papers with the dark ends there, if you pass those up for me. I'm going to start out by talking about something that occurred here in the city last week because I was involved in an arrest at about 10:30 one evening last week. And when you talk about the Solitos and their influence and their attempt to influence young people in the community to join them, they're reaching out. And I don't want to frighten you, I'm going to inform you tonight. Last week, one evening, I was involved in a retail theft arrest. 2 juveniles, one age 15, one age 11. The 15-year-old was a Munita, a sister in the Solitos. And I say was because we have assisted her in getting out of the organization. The 11-year-old is not old enough. Got to be 12. Got to be 12. But they're working on her. 11-year-old about to enter the 6th grade, which is one of our target areas for DARE, 6th grade, or 5th grade at Christ the King. Solitos always have a weapon very close. They always have a weapon nearby. This was on the 11-year-old. We took a larger one off the 15-year-old. This came up from our lab. I've got to bring it back. It's in my custody. If I lose it, the chief's going to give me about 3 or 4 days suspension, I would assume.
Hey, can you tell us what it is?
It is a lockback knife, about a 4-inch blade. We called the 11-year-old's mother to the police station. She was in my custody at the time. To release her to a parent. She was being charged as a juvenile with retail theft. The mother wanted the knife back. I said, why? I said, might as well give it back to her. She's got a whole bunch more at home in a bucket. I said, why? Needs protection.
From what?
That's what I asked. I didn't get a good answer on that one. No. They are attempting to recruit our young people. Make no mistake about it. Be alert to that. There are a lot of handouts here today with symptomatic things and responses on your part as parents. How many of you are parents? I probably know your kids through the DARE program. How many are grandparents? I know your grandkids. Okay. How many of you want to be parents? Do the best you can. Okay. DARE works in the schools. The 17-week coordinated program by police officers that go in. We don't wear our weapons in the schools because we don't see kids as threats to us in the schools, and they should not envision us as a threat to them. We're there to give them the social skills to resist violence, to resist drugs, and now, even more important, to resist gangs, because we have gang influence here. One of my primary responsibilities as being a patrol officer, and on a daily basis, as the chief knows, I talk to the Solitos too, and have to deal with them. It's because we have to keep track of them. And I see what's occurring. And I reemphasize what the mayor said. There is a definite threat to our youth in this community. We cannot overlook that. We cannot minimize it. We encourage you to talk to us about the DARE program. We're willing to come out and speak to community groups and others because we do have parental programs. The chief has talked about committing officers possibly to getting into the junior high and high school curriculums as well. Hopefully this year we can schedule our program with DARE a little earlier than the past. We usually targeted the second semester. This year we'd like to get into our schools in November, if possible. Has DARE been successful? In the first year of DARE, we saw a 26% reduction in the number of juvenile arrests in our community. In the second year of DARE, and these statistics are documented in the annual city report, juvenile arrests in our target range of grades 5 and 6 went down 46%. And in the third year, we had an 88% reduction in juvenile arrests. We're not saying DARE is responsible for all of that. There are a lot of proactive programs our department's involved in, but DARE is one of the significant ones. The teachers in our schools are doing a remarkable job under sometimes incredible circumstances too. We've maintained for about the past 5 years an 80% reduction from back in 87 rates of juvenile arrests in our community. There's an anticipation we're going to see an increase this year because of the influence of Los Solitos. Be aware, be cautious, but be understanding, and be willing to communicate your needs to us as well. People at DARE offices are willing to talk to you. We'll talk to current groups at any time. We have no problem with that whatsoever. Just get in touch with us through our department. Any way that we can help you to meet the needs of your children, feel free to ask. Thank you.
We've gone way over the time we meant to spend, and I know that all of you don't have a lot of time. One of the things we're passing out, I guess it's been distributed, is some suggestions I have to the parents and ways to try to prevent their children from becoming involved in gang activity. I'm not going to go down that list. I think it speaks for itself. There's 10 suggestions there. And if any of you are teachers or have friends, you want to reproduce that, you're welcome to reproduce anything that we distribute here. The whole purpose of this is to be informative to as many people as we possibly can reach. But I want to save time and get into to try to answer some of the questions you may have. So if anyone has questions at this point about anything that we brought up or comments, they go to the microphone right back there. That's the only one. Yeah. And I think everybody can hear the questions, and we will try to respond to them. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, did you, that first...
Could you use the microphone, please?
That first Sunday night when you had a problem and you were rushing people to the hospital on this gang fight that you had down on Maple Street, did you have a shooting on Haywood Avenue, drive-by on 3 shots being fired at about 9:30, 10 o'clock at nighttime? It was brought out just lightly in the paper, but it wasn't brought out again to inform people that it was gunshots and not a car backfiring.
I remember the incident, and as far as our records show, we have nothing that was confirmed, or the officers found nothing that there was shots fired. Could have been firecrackers, could have been shots fired, but the officers didn't find anything or confirm either or. And we have a lot of that in the city, especially around the 4th of July. I mean, we're always getting shots fired and it turns out to be fireworks, or we can't determine what it was. But as far as shell casings or bullet holes, we didn't find anything. And there was nobody in the area. And I know that the officers there was like 4 or 5 cruisers up there. Yeah. Somebody else?
Is there any way to get a law passed that says, no matter what your age, if you are involved in any kind of illegal acts and you're associated with a gang, that you can be tried as an adult?
Well, we have juvenile law. You can be charged as a juvenile. See if I get this right.
No, be charged as an adult. I mean, isn't the
A 16 and a 17-year-old can be charged as an adult.
Well, they have 11-year-olds in it.
Well, it all depends on what crimes that can be committed. I think murder and aggravated sexual assault and stuff like that, they can be tried as an adult. There are like retail theft and stealing and stuff like that, they can't be charged as an adult. Only certain crimes.
My thought is they want younger kids because these kids get right back out on the street. If they're charged as an adult, they're not as likely to be back out on the street. Is that not correct?
Explain the difference there.
Okay. Juvenile is anybody from infant up to 15 years old. A minor is from 16 to 17, and of course an adult is 18. Certain crimes, regardless of age, can be charged as an adult. Some crimes can only be charged as a juvenile. A 16 and 17-year-old can be charged as a juvenile or as an adult. It's basically the type of the offense or up to the officer's discretion on how he wants to charge. But as far as like, you have hate-motivated crimes, which as I talked about in the recap, that simple assault or any other kind of charge that goes along with it, they have to meet the criteria. But you're right, we don't have a gang-related crime. If you're involved in a gang and you commit a crime.
Is there any way to do that?
The way you'd have to deal with that would be through the legislature in Montpelier. I know Alderman Gillum spends an inordinate amount of time during the session up there because he works with an association that is involved with legislative activity and the legislative process. And he knows far more about it than I do. But basically, in order to propose or to pass something like that, it would require an act of the legislature and the governor's signature to modify the existing criminal statutes in the state to allow that. It's an interesting notion. I'm not an attorney, so I couldn't comment on whether, what the pros and the cons would be, but it's an interesting notion that probably ought to be referred to people with legal background to research that. I'd be happy to pass it on to the city attorney, see what he thinks of it. I mean, he certainly could give you a far better answer than I could. Sam?
Linda wrote her question on the back of the card, and I wrote that I'll ask Chris Sullivan, and she wants us to stay after it. So it is a good question, and I think the city attorney would best address that for us. We'll have them send you a note.
Oh, your representative. That's where it starts.
Yeah, it's not totally impossible. It's difficult, but there are certain crimes when committed against certain people increase the crime. Crime against the elderly, or crimes involving hate that increases the penalty and makes the crime more serious. The position of the person committing the crime is a little more difficult, I think, because you would have some real difficult times establishing that they were aware of the gang intent and a lot of things. But I'm not saying it's possible. But I think particularly when it involves juvenile, it would be a difficult thing to change. Any other questions?
I have something. I grew up here, and I'm thinking of coming back to live. I'm not socially. I write for a newspaper in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It's the second largest daily in the state. I'm only a little over 100 miles from Little Rock, and they have a bad problem here. I would suggest that if you want a good video, you take gang banging in Little Rock. It is horrendous, but it's true. It happens all the time there. It is getting to be a terrifying city to live in. I think HBO Entertainment puts it out, and it should be shown to every parent and every citizen. It's awful, but it's true. I used to go to Little Rock all the time to visit friends, and it's getting so bad. Terrifying because you cannot drive by, even in the malls. It's a terrible serious problem. Second question, have you closed that getaway team club?
I'm sorry?
Have you closed the club, the getaway team club?
No, but I want to make a remark about that.
I wondered about that. That might be a good idea.
First of all, there wouldn't be a reason that we would have legal reason to close that club. Thank you very much for your comments. The name of that tape is Little Rock Gang Bang?
Gang banging in Little Rock.
Gang banging in Little Rock. Okay. Thank you very much for those comments. Well, the last question is, did we close the Getaway Club? No, we have not. But the Getaway Club will be closed until probably after the fair, and it may not reopen. If it does, it'll probably change its name to reopen. We didn't close that. I talked to the owner of it, and he told me something that frankly is very frightening. Because it's indicative of the kind of influence that the Salinos have already on our youth in this town. When this began, and he attended several of our meetings, but about 10 days ago, he asked some of the Salidos that he knew that were going there not to come back. He did it in a respectful way and asked them just to lay low till everything cools down, because it was having some effect on parents allowing kids to go to his club, what have you. Within 7 days, and they agreed to do that, within 7 days, according to the owner, where he normally did about 200 kids, or usually had 200 kids attending the club on Friday and Saturday nights, he dropped from 200 to 25. Now, the frightening thing about that to me is there's the following. That's influence. Just closing this club is not always a problem, but these kids aren't all Rutland kids, but from Rutland County primarily. I mean, they're from all around. But there's a real fascination and following for the gang members. Now, I can tell you, they have a lot of charisma. And they have a lot of people convinced that they're all here for the right reasons. And there's a couple of them I think they're here visiting in the room. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what they'll say while they're here, or why they're here. But it'll probably be, and they told me, someone told me this, they've come here to get away from the gangs in the big city. I submit to you that if I were going to get away from a gang in a big city, I wouldn't let anybody know and join the same gang someplace else. I mean, that's rather silly. But any member of the Salidos or any other street gang that is here that wants to break away from that has a perfect opportunity to do it. They can contact me personally. They can contact anybody on this panel or any other member of the police department. We will meet with them privately, without our guns, without our badges, without our police cars, and we will help them get out. We'll help them get work. We'll help them get back to school here or someplace else. Now, we've offered that now for 2 weeks publicly. We haven't had a single taker, not a single call. Nobody's called and said, yeah, help me get out. And it's earnest. And anybody in here who is associated with this, who is a Salido wannabe, goes on with you as well. Or your children, if you're concerned about it. If they talk to you, if you have children who may be involved in Salidos, and I know there was there was one case in here where we had a parent whose son is Salido. You can pass that on to them. They want out. In this town, you got a better chance than anybody. We'll help you out, help you get a job, and do whatever we can to get you back on the straight and out. Regardless of your criminal record, we'll help you out. And you don't have to tell us any Salidos secrets. You don't have to turn state's evidence, you don't have to do anything. But you better be sincere, because you only fooled me once. Yes, ma'am.
Get them jobs and get them back into school?
I have personal connections that other people do with Job Corps, who provide training, provide some income for them while they're training, and getting back to school is a very simple thing.
Why are they here?
Why are they here?
Why are they here in this area?
That's a question a lot of people ask.
Why did they pick Rutland? Why not Burlington?
I don't really know, but I have a number of ideas about that. Rutland, first of all, by its location, is close to a lot of major cities, not unlike Davenport, Iowa. I talk about Montreal, Albany, New York, Boston, Hartford, Springfield. We're not very far, a couple hours from many of those. It's a quiet community, and there is presently, there's no gang here that has any authority or has control over the drug traffic here or the crime. So it's easy pickings from that standpoint. I think there's some underestimation of the population population and the police department and the interest of the government here. I think they didn't make a proper evaluation of that. I think the fact that the gang forces, gang task forces down in Massachusetts have been extremely successful and put an awful lot of pressure on the gangs down there, and I think they may be looking for a place to move or to branch out. Besides, it's in the charter that they want to do that. And to move in another state, they would probably select either Rutland or the Burlington area, and the only cities large enough to be of interest. And I think all of those combination of things caused them to come here. But there's another element that I think makes Rutland a little bit more of a target. And that is, Rutland youth, for the most part, are very naive. They don't know the ways of the city, and I think they're fascinated, I think they're truly fascinated with the wildness of the gang. Not unlike you remember the girl in the television in the Dan Rather situation. She was fascinated by the wildness of the man. I think there's something to that. And I think that's one of the reasons that Rutland is vulnerable.
What about welfare?
There's been some question about, we do have very liberal welfare laws in Vermont. I don't know whether any of the CEOs are presently using that, taking that advantage or not, so I don't know whether that would be one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons that have been suggested to me. Those Rutland kids, Rutland area kids that have been associated with them, and some have befriended them and so forth, they're from all economic areas.
It's not a focus on...
I'm sorry.
How, part of the statistics on the Rutland children who have befriended them or joined them, are the statistics as to Rutland children who have actually joined the group or signed this contract?
Yes, there are some who have actually joined the group, and then there's a number of what I call wannabes and followers who are closely associated with them, some even assisting them. Some cases are allowing them to stay in their homes or making other arrangements, assisting them to live and that sort of thing. But some that have actually joined them. Yeah, some have actually joined them. Back there.
Do you plan to go into...
I tell you what, we're going to go back to our original forum. Go on up to the microphone. It'll be a lot easier. If you want to speak, just line up, and then I don't have to choose. Go ahead.
Do you plan to show these videos that you have here in the schools? As you can see, I have my 11-year-old granddaughter with me. It's a real concern of mine that you take a knife off of an 11-year-old. Do you plan to educate our children in the schools other than DARE?
We're talking to the faculty of all the schools, the teachers. We don't have a lot of control, except through DARE. We don't have a lot of control of what the teachers are doing, but hopefully they will, certainly through DARE, we'll get to all the 5th and 6th graders, and hopefully get back into the junior high school this year with the DARE program, and there's a couple of weeks of that on gangs, and that will probably be the extent that we'll be able to do that, because they have a tremendous curriculum that they have to fill within a year, and I don't know that we can interrupt that. In a couple of weeks, I think we have 2 weeks within the DARE program, 2 or 3 weeks on gangs. So, yes, ma'am.
I just wondered, with the Rutland Fair coming up next week, are you taking any extra precautions as far as possibility of some problems down the fairgrounds with this gang, between the gang and perhaps fair workers, or maybe just Rutland people? I've heard various rumors that they're starting some major problems. I was going to take any extra precautions.
You can be sure that if you've heard the rumors, I've probably heard them too. My answer to your question is yes. My answer to your question is yes, we are. Well, if there aren't any more questions, we'll be glad to hang around for a little while afterwards if you have any specific questions you really don't want to ask anyone else. So I want to thank you all for coming this morning. The mayor has one more comment.
One thing that didn't get mentioned, and probably should, is that Dr. Dean Mooney, who is the psychologist on staff at Rutland High School, has established a support group for parents and young people who are at risk, if you will. If you are a parent or a grandparent of a young person who is flirting with this or who may have already signed up, there is a support group of like folks with Dr. Mooney, who I might add has a substantial amount of experience in this area as a result of his many years. It was in Ontario, Canada, however, it was directly across the river from Detroit. So it was a great deal of experience with the big city version of this, and knows the psychological and the family kinds of issues that develop. So if you have an interest in doing that, or know someone that might need to avail themselves of that kind of a counseling or that kind of an association, I'd encourage you to call him at the high school directly, or just let one of us know, and we'll make sure that you get hooked up. Thank you again very much for coming out. We really do appreciate it, and we'll make sure that you keep posted as the situation develops. Thank you.